What's up, Tailgaters? My name is Tailgate Nate. Welcome back to my channel. I'm back with yet another schedule preview and record prediction video. And today, we're going to be going through the 2020 Baylor Bears. Baylor was a team last year that surprised a lot of people in the entire college football world last year. Baylor was a team that was not very good in 2018. They didn't even make a bowl game. They weren't even close to making a New Year's Six bowl game last year. Very close to a Big 12 title last year. Get more into that in a little bit, but Baylor this year is losing a lot. Their head coach, Matt Rule, their defensive coordinator, their head coach and Matt Rule, and they also lost their defensive coordinator. They both went to go coach at the Carolina Panthers NFL program. They are bringing in Dave Aranda, who was an LSU defensive coordinator, as head coach, so Baylor's defense should be fairly good this season. My apologies. And then on the offensive side, Charlie Brewer is coming back, but he's losing his number one guy in Denzel Mims. So Charlie Brewer is going to have to find a new number one if the Baylor offense wants to be as good as it was last year. So we're going to see if Baylor can continue their ways from last year and get back to a New Year's Six bowl, or if Baylor's going to fall back to where they were in 2018. All right, here's the schedule for the Baylor Bears. You'll look down there. Their 2019 record was 11-3, so they went 11-1 in the regular season. The only loss that they had was to Oklahoma, who ended up being a playoff team and Big 12 champion, in which they beat Baylor again in the Big 12 championship game in overtime. Both games absolutely great to watch. And then Baylor's third loss came in the Sugar Bowl to Georgia, which was a New Year's Six game, which I think everyone saw coming. You look up there, their home games are going to be in the dark green, away games are going to be in the gold and yellow, and they have a neutral site game, and as always, that's going to be in black. So without further ado, let's go ahead and take a look at the Baylor Bears schedule. First game of the season is that neutral site game. It's going to be in NRG Stadium in Houston, Texas, and they're going to be facing the Ole Miss Rebels, and I can't wait to watch this game. This game is going to be against two pretty average teams, in my opinion, in each of their respective conferences. I see both being able to make a bowl game, but both are right around the cutoff for a bowl game. But this game is going to be absolutely incredible to watch. Both teams are getting new head coaches, so Ole Miss is getting Lane Kiffin. Baylor, of course, as I mentioned in my intro, is getting Dave Aranda. And both quarterbacks are returning, Charlie Brewer for Baylor and John Rhys Plumlee for Ole Miss. The only difference, though, is Ole Miss and John Rhys Plumlee, they are returning their number one target in Elijah Moore. Baylor is not returning their number one target in Denzel Mims. He is off to the NFL, so Baylor's going to have to find a new number one guy. This game could go either way for me. I believe that Ole Miss is going to be a much better team, and I feel like we got to give Lane Kiffin a couple years. This game is very close for me. Really, this game could go either way for me. I think I'm going to slightly lean towards the Baylor Bears because it is in Houston, Texas, and it's just so close to the campus that Baylor has in Waco. Ole Miss has got to travel a little bit. I feel like there's going to be more Baylor fans there than Ole Miss fans there, if, of course, fans are allowed there. That's why I think Baylor will win this game. And overall, I just see Baylor's defense being better than Ole Miss's defense. Then a home game against Kansas, and this one should be a nice, easy one for Baylor. We got to give Les Miles a couple more years before Kansas is really able to get off the ground and soar on to bigger and better things. But for right now, the Jayhawks got a lot of work to do, and Baylor Bears shouldn't have a problem here. That's another home game against Incarnate Word, and I mean, Baylor shouldn't have a problem with this one. I mean, Incarnate Word is an FCS team, not a very good one at that, so Baylor. Then a home game against LA Tech. So LA Tech shocked the world and I don't even think allowed Miami to score a single point in their bowl game last year, which absolutely crazy. And La Tech is always a fairly decent team, and I think they're going to be a fairly decent team this year. I see La Tech being able to keep with Baylor for maybe a little bit, but overall I just see Baylor being able to pull away and win this one by 20-plus points. Then they start Big 12 play besides Kansas, and this 6-game stretch is absolutely brutal for the Baylor Bears. First, kick it off. It's a road game against Oklahoma. So last year Baylor got Oklahoma at home and probably ended up could have winning that game. I think they should have won that game. It was fairly close, but Baylor blew it towards the end. And this year, I don't feel like it's going to be as close as it was last year. I don't even think it's going to be close I see Oklahoma being able to beat Baylor pretty easily here in this one. And they get their bye week, and in my opinion, there are better spots for a bye week. I think it's good that they have it after Oklahoma. Kind of gives them a step to relax back, because they could be undefeated coming into Oklahoma, and Oklahoma could be their first loss, and it'd be a second to kind of relax and settle down the Baylor program. But when you look at the rest of their schedule, you'd love to have your bye week later in the season to just put you at a better spot for a bye week to kill off what probably could be a bad momentum streak here at the start of the 6-game stretch. So afterwards, they're going to get a Thursday game against the Texas Tech Red Raiders. And if Alan Bowman can stay healthy for the Red Raiders, Texas Tech has potential to be a surprise team in the Big 12. But until Alan Bowman can prove to be healthy and just guys can step up around the Texas Tech program, when you look, not a lot of guys around the Texas Tech program that really have stepped it up. It's mainly been Alan Bowman, but he's been dealing with injuries pretty much his entire career. So if Alan Bowman can stay healthy, Baylor should watch out for this game. But until then, I see Baylor easily getting the dub. Then a home game against TCU, and TCU is always no pushover. They're going to be a hard team to beat this year. Gary Patterson, his defensive system, I've seen is kind of taken a step back in a couple years, but now is improving year after year. I've been talking with a lot of my friends recently, and one of them says that he believes that TCU could be this year's Baylor in the Big 12, which I'm kind of starting to believe more and more as I look at this TCU team and just their talent and what they could be capable of. So Baylor should watch out for TCU here. This one, I think, going to be a great game to watch. This one maybe could go either way for me, but right now I think I'm going to slightly lean towards the Baylor Bears just because it is a home game, and until that scenario holds true, in which TCU could be next year's Baylor, I'm picking Baylor. Then a road game against Texas, and this one's going to be hard. It's going to be on Halloween. The stadium is going to be rocking. I believe that fans are going to be in the stadium for this game, and it's not going to be a fun night for Texas or a fun day for Texas, whichever or whenever they decide to play this game. I think that Texas is going to be too talented this year, and I know we've been saying that a lot in past years, but I really do believe that Texas is just going to be too talented this year. Baylor's not going to be able to compete with the Longhorns. Then a home game against Oklahoma State. So I feel like this is the game that Oklahoma State needs to watch out for. I didn't talk about it a lot in the Oklahoma State video, but they really do need to watch out for this game. Oklahoma State's one of the top teams in returning production this year. But if Oklahoma State is not careful, and Baylor is, they're not going to be as good as they were last year, but if Baylor is any hint of how good they were, or of how good they are last year, Baylor could upset Oklahoma State here, and this could be a trap game for Oklahoma State. It really could be. I just feel like Oklahoma State's got too much talent. Chuba Hubbard, L.D. Brown, Spencer Sanders, Tyron Wallace. The offense is absolutely loaded for Oklahoma State, and Cowboys should be able to win this one. Then a road game against Iowa State. This game is an interesting game because, again, as I said, if Baylor ends up coming off with an upset against Oklahoma State here in that past game, and they're going to come with a lot of momentum to the Iowa State game on the road, and they could make it a fairly close game. I just feel like Brock Purdy is going to be playing at his highest level by this point. Breece Hall is going to be playing at his highest level by this point. Charlie Kohler, Chase Allen at their highest point. Their defense and wide receivers have taken it up 80 notches, and I just feel like Iowa State's going to be a really hard team to beat late in the season, so I'm going to give the Cyclones the win in this one. Then a road game against the West Virginia Mountaineers, and I'm not high on this team at all. A lot of people are saying that they can compete with Florida State. I talked about it in my video yesterday when I did Florida State, but I don't see a way that they can compete with Florida State, and I surely don't see a way that they can compete with the Baylor Bears, so Baylor all day. Then the last game of the season is a home game against Kansas State, and this game could be interesting. I mean, Kansas State is returning their quarterback, Skylar Thompson, and he is a good dual-threat quarterback. But other than that, Kansas State doesn't really have all that great of talent around in Manhattan. I mean, They got some good playmakers, but no name that really stands out to you besides Skylar Thompson. It's a home game for Baylor. I feel like whichever quarterback can play better, whether that be Skylar Thompson or Charlie Brewer, they're going to be able to win this football game. But overall, I see Baylor being the more talented team, especially on the defensive side, which I think is going to matter a lot in this game. So Baylor will win this one. All right, so now with everything being said and considered for the Baylor Bears, I have them going 7-5, and it starts with the 6-game stretch in the middle of the season. All right, with Oklahoma, Texas Tech, TCU, Texas, Oklahoma State, Iowa State, and just where their bye week is at. They get to play Oklahoma, then they get their bye week. It's a good, fit for a rest, but after they got to play 5 for what could be very tricky games, especially those last 3. I mean, Texas Tech and TCU are just going to be challenges. I think Baylor could overlook both of those games. If you're wondering, the 5 more likely losses to me are for sure losses to Oklahoma, Texas, Oklahoma State. Maybe they can beat Iowa State. I see them losing that game. And then I feel like they're going to lose one of the 3 games out of Ole Miss, Texas Tech, and TCU. I'm more so leaning to that being the Ole Miss or TCU game because Alan Bowman. Just don't know if he's going to stay healthy yet. But overall, I think the Baylor Bears are going to go 7-5. All right, so now let's move on to our record range. What this is, I take this team's worst-case scenario along with their best-case scenario. And the worst-case scenario I have for the Baylor Bears is 5-7 and missing out on a bowl game just like they did in 2018. I mean, look, losing a defensive coordinator, but you're bringing a defensive coordinator at head coach. So I don't know how the offense is going to run, especially if Charlie Brewer doesn't play as well as he did last year, especially because he does not have Denzel Mims, and the running game probably not going to be as good as it was last year. So overall, I really do expect Baylor to take a step back, but this would be like 2 steps back if Baylor were to go 5-7. But their schedule is hard enough to where they definitely can go 5-7 and still be a really, really good team. I just feel like that is their absolute worst case scenario. When you look at their schedule, it is very plausible that Baylor could go 5-7. So let's move on to their best case scenario, which I have at 9-3. Like I said, I could see them beating Ole Miss, Texas Tech, TCU. I just can't see them beating Oklahoma on the road, Texas on the road. And in this best case scenario, I think they'd split Oklahoma State and Iowa State, in my opinion, would be an upset of either one of those teams. But overall, 9-3, best case scenario. If Denzel Mims and Dave Aranda comes in, is like, you know what? No big deal. Charlie Brewer, go do your thing. And Charlie Brewer finds a new favorite target that is as or maybe even as good or maybe even better than Denzel Mims. I don't think that's going to happen. But if that does happen, Baylor could be a very dangerous team, especially if Dave Aranda comes in and flips this Baylor defense on its head and Baylor defense starts playing absolutely lights out. Baylor's going to team you got to have to watch out for. But my current prediction for the 2020 Baylor Bears, 7-5. All right, so that's going to do it for my schedule preview and record prediction for the Baylor Bears. And if you guys enjoyed, please leave a like. Also consider subscribing if you're brand new to the channel or just enjoy my content. And if you haven't done so already, please do leave a comment down below. I would love to hear your thoughts on the Baylor Bears. And as always, until next time, remember, play hard but tailgate harder. I'll see y'all in the next video. Goodbye.